for those that are thinking about doing something like this or have thought about doing, a monumental bucket list or adventure or challenge or something to stretch their comfort zones or, it's like we all have that sense of adventure in us, right? Or at least I think I know that I do. I know that a lot of people that we connect with do, but we don't
Oh,
actually
absolutely.
tap into it enough or at all. What would you say to somebody who is considering their own Mount Kilimanjaro expedition who is hesitant to actually pull the trigger on doing something like this?
That is a great, another great question, Colin. And that's my whole purpose for talking about it so much at school and coming on this podcast is to say to people, no matter what your Kilimanjaro is, and with adventures like this, there's no one size fits all, whether it's actually climbing Kilimanjaro or just going somewhere that you've dreamed of your entire life, rafting the Grand Canyon, visiting national parks, anything that speaks to you in that way. I encourage people to do it because we all have one short life and nothing is guaranteed in the future, and the reward, the feeling of satisfaction of knowing that you pushed yourself outside of your comfort zone, and everyone's comfort zone is different, is so deeply satisfying that I think it's really worth it, to take smart risks. And I always include the caveat of smart. I'm
Mhm.
in no way recommending the couch to Mount Everest exercise plan, but if you invest the time and do the research and invest in the prep work, it's really deeply satisfying and very much worth it, because I found that fear is kind of like a bubble. There's this membrane on the outside, but once you poke that, it kind of just collapses, and you see that these things that once seemed impossible and daunting and only for the special among us, if you will, that you can do them too. So that's my message to everyone: is take smart risks, prepare, and the thing that you think will give your life that sense of meaning and take your experience to the next level.
That's some powerful stuff. I mean, we're talking about fear now, right? And I've never heard fear described like that. And I think that it's so true because oftentimes what we fear doesn't really exist, right? It's stories that will oftentimes make up in our head. Fear often, it can definitely be very real though. I will acknowledge that. Like there are things that I know
Absolutely.
are going to frighten me and us, and those are scary things. And to take action in the face of fear is something to where you are walking off of that mountain, right? A stronger Chris, a stronger individual, somebody who is stronger for your kids and your students that you teach, for Jess, your girlfriend, for whoever you're impacting, right? The individuals listening to this. Um, Sometimes, however, fear is not actually real, or as much as we make it out to be, until we take the action in it and pop the bubble, and then it's like, oh, okay, I did that, right?
Yes.
And overcame that. So yeah, fear is a very powerful topic, and I enjoy talking about it because it's something that I experience often, um, as well, just as many people in here who are apprehensive to do something because of anticipation is another side of fear, right? Again, the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
What would you say financially to somebody who is like, well, that's awesome, Chris. Like I'd do it in a heartbeat, but I don't have the money or the resources to go do that.
That is definitely the toughest part.
Mhm.
And the economic dimension of visiting Tanzania is the part of the whole trip that I still wrestle with, because it is
Right.
a beautiful, very raw, very authentic, but developing country. And I'm very blessed. I'm very privileged. Had I not, grown up the way I did, with the parents that I had in the family background, and living in Wyoming, and had the professional career opportunities and the opportunity to go to college and finish,
Mhm.
and always be loved and supported. Um, I would say that, if you're really committed, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you do next year, but maybe
Mhm.
start saving
Mm.
whatever you can, find ways, and then make sacrifices, perhaps work overtime. I took on extra professional responsibilities that required me to work 7 days a week in order to do
Wow.
that. But I wish I had a more one size fits all response. And in my personal case, there just seemed to be this point where the universe or God or whatever divine being you believe in, there was definitely a little bit of luck involved in the sense that I had this big dream, and when I booked the trip, I only paid for perhaps 5 to 10% of the cost,
Mm.
and I really wasn't sure where I was going to get the money, but through my job, I was able to have these doors open for professional opportunities, and I did make a lot of sacrifices leading up to it. I didn't leave the town where we live in for months. I didn't eat out at restaurants. I ate lentils for lunch every week. I filled up my car with gas maybe once a month. Um, and I always remind myself that, yeah, it's uncomfortable and it's painful right now, but it will be worth it in a few months. So there's no one size fits all answer there.
Well, I think your one size fits all answer is your story about what you exactly did. And I'm so inspired just sitting here listening to you because what I'm thinking about is how you began with the end in mind, right? It goes back to the very beginning of our conversation where you said that you pulled the trigger and you committed to doing it, and the how was still to be figured out. But the what and the why was a commitment on your end. And I just am so inspired by that because then you basically sacrifice certain things that you were willing to sacrifice, and you developed a plan of your own. You put intentions out there about what you were doing within the world, and then doors and opportunities opened up with the extra things at work to get some extra money, the working the extra days, whatever these opportunities were. um the you committed to doing this thing, and I'm like, I think that is so cool, and I think that anybody listening to this can take away, like, beginning with the end in mind and fully committing and going all in on something to the point where it's like you're all in, right? And then you continue to figure things out, because when we go all in on something, it's we see things differently. We see the opportunities to cut
Absolutely.
back on the spending, right? Like, okay, I'm fully committed, and so now it's like you're looking at the world differently on how you can really make it work. And I think that goes in line with most things in life, at least from your experience, my experience. Like, when we are fully committed, bought in, all in, like, then it's like
Absolutely.
you start moving things around and you see things differently. So I appreciate you saying that. And for those listening, like, I'm totally just throwing these at Chris. These were not scripted. There's nothing scripted about this conversation. I am just genuinely curious and asking Chris questions that I think the audience and y'all will find valuable, and hopefully derive some value from. So Chris, I appreciate you being flexible. It's just my very random questions that I'm throwing at you. So, um, well, I don't. Maybe I'll do one more for you. Outline some
Sure.
lessons for me. Maybe if you had like two or three key takeaways, whether that be from like preparation or overcoming adversity, or just being so glad that you did it and living with no regret, or I don't know if you have reflected on that much. I'm knowing you, I'm sure that you have, but what are two or three takeaways or key lessons for our audience listening here today?
Oh, yes, Colin. I have been reflecting on this experience
Yeah,
since I
no doubt.
finished doing it and when I was still in Tanzania, and pretty much ever since.
Mhm.
I learned I learned so many things. I think the biggest one that I take away from this experience, and that I knew from Peru and all the other experiences, um, but that as human beings, whether you live in Tanzania or Tonga or Cincinnati, that most human beings we have so much more in common, and just being a human connects us to every other human being in so many more ways than I think we realize. Especially if you watch the news and things like that. I didn't speak the language, as we mentioned, when I went to Tanzania, but I still was able to make authentic connections with people just by smiling and saying hello and seeing that we all feel the same emotions. We all experience great triumph and significant heartbreak, and we all just want a better future for ourselves and our friends and the people we loved, no matter where we are. And so, no matter where you're born or what color your skin is or how you grew up, there's something that connects all of us. Some other things that I
Wow.
learned that I think I really remember um, are the power of delayed gratification. I never I've obviously set out to climb mountains, especially in Colorado and Wyoming, close to where I live. But I've never spent 5 days working on a project essentially with no guarantee of success, um, just to say I've done it, and then having spent all that time, and it was a lot of time with myself on the mountain. There's no TV, there's no cell service. I didn't bring any books because I didn't want myself or someone else to have to carry them. So I just spent a lot of time with me, with the person I am. And so I had a lot of opportunities to think about things and consider why I was doing it. And so, long story short, delayed gratification is awesome. There was so much satisfaction and meaning that I was able to get from just the process of walking and looking off into the horizon and seeing another country and thinking about, how has evolution shaped this landscape, all of this leading up to this accomplishment that now I carry with me forever. So I encourage people to think long term, whatever that long term is, whether it's a 6 day mountain climb or spending the next 15 years building your business. Because once you achieve that dream, it's something, like you said, that you carry with you forever. If I lost everything, I would still have the pride of knowing that I pushed myself to the top of Kilimanjaro, and that no one can ever take that away from me. And then the third one is, kind of touched on this, but you can push yourself further than you think is possible. And we all have different limits, and you can change your limits through exercise and meditation and reading and education and all those things. But even if you consciously choose to expand your limits by training to climb Kilimanjaro or any other mountain, you're going to still have that limit, even though you move the goalpost much further, and you're going to arrive at that limit. And then when it seems like you can't, you're going to find something within yourself that says, I can go past this, and I can walk until I really do think I'm going to throw up and lay on the ground and never walk again. But then you're able to stand up and keep walking. And so I learned that there's so much more to me as a person than I realized going into this. And I'm still finding out things about myself, and I do a lot of writing about what I experienced, both on Kilimanjaro and then in the wildlife and cultural safari that we did afterwards.
Hmm.
But those are probably the three biggest things that stick out right off the top of my head.
I appreciate you, A, taking the time to reflect on those things. And I can tell that you really took time because you are able to so clearly articulate those 3 points. And I think that's when you really know how much thought and reflection you've given to it. So I heard a couple different things. Number one, the power of human connection and how we're all connected in one way, shape, or form, no matter if we speak the language, no matter if we don't, no matter where we're at in the world, no matter what we're doing, who we're with. I so full heartedly believe in that, and I'm it excites me that that was the first thing that you said, and that came to mind. The second thing you mentioned, delayed gratification, um, and I also heard in there just the power of sitting with yourself for an extended period of time, and what you were able to learn about yourself and gain more clarity on who you are as an individual. Because I think it ties right into the last thing and the third bullet point that you touched on, which is we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And so I'm super grateful that you came on and shared your experience